What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Triple Play Fantasy YouTube channel. I'm your host, Kevin Coleman. And on today's episode, we have special guest, good friend of mine, Daniel Harms. He's pretty much a man of many talents. He does pretty much, he's got Twitch streams, he plays video games, he breaks down film. He's a Chiefs guru. If he retweets something of yours and you say something negative about the tweets, just expect a lot of hate. I found that there's a lot of hate out there for that. But Daniel, thanks for coming on today.
No problem. And, I appreciate you putting the Twitch out there, but I just want to forewarn everybody, if I am playing video games, there's a good chance I'm not very good at it. So it's usually what I do just to calm down. But we will be doing more film reviews and like film rooms on the Twitch channel. So just trying to get that up and running. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to this entire first round mock draft.
Yeah, that's what we're going to roll into. But hey, for sure about the Twitch stuff, when we go in the film stuff, I'll be jumping in there when I can just to understand how to watch film. And my buddy Nick put out a funny tweet the other day about how he typed in like highlights on YouTube and then you watch it. Like there's nuances to it. And I think that's a good way to put it. But we are going to jump in like he talked about. We are going to be doing a NFL mock draft. So this is not a fantasy mock draft. This is for the NFL mock draft. We're going to do the entire first round today. And we are just going to alternate picks, me and Daniel, and we're going to just talk about guys as we go. And when we alternate them, what we're going to be working on today is PFN's mock draft simulator. This isn't a bad simulator. Draft Network also has a good one. And I'd highly recommend theirs too. But we're just going to use this one because it's loaded up on my computer. So I got the first pick. So I am going to be drafting for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And, when I'm looking at the Jaguars, team needs for me, offensive line, tight end, wide receiver, defensive line. Listen, they have a lot of needs, but they don't have a quarterback need. And so when you're looking at how kind of we've seen the combine just happened, I think the defensive line, as you can probably attest to, is definitely an area that is very high, that has a lot of great prospects out there. But I still think, to me, just like when I wrote my mock draft for Fantasy Pros, is that they need an offensive lineman, and I still think it's Evan Neal. And I think that when you have Evan Neal there, they're going to be able to surround Trevor Lawrence. They got to have that. He only allowed 22 pressures the past 2 years at both tackle positions, so he definitely does have that versatility. So I'm going to go with Evan Neal at the 101 for Jacksonville. What do you think about that? What do you think, Daniel?
No, for me, it's just two guys. Like, really, I think they could go in one of two ways, and it's him or Kwanu. Like, that's pretty much who they think is going to be best in that position. But when you just look at the measurements, like, I think you can base this decision almost on the measurements alone. And Neal he looks slimmer than I do at 337 pounds. I weigh 260. Like, that's just it's not a comparison. The dude he's a machine. He's going to help solidify that quarterback position they have in Jacksonville. So I totally get going Evan Neal at first overall, but I do think it's tackle regardless of who it is.
Yeah. I do too. I think you could pair him with a defensive guy, but I think with the depth at that position, I think they're okay waiting to the second round. So yeah. I do think that Neal is just one of those guys. When I saw him and I saw what he weighed in at, I was just like, man, he looks so much better than I do. All right, let's go to the Lions. What do you think the Lions are going to do?
Being a guy who lived in Michigan, I did get to see. I've seen a lot of Tigers, Lions, just all these Detroit teams that just can't seem to get it right. The Lions seem to be doing what a lot of teams have done recently in terms of trying to get everything else right before the quarterback position. So it looks like they're heading in the right direction. I think Dan Campbell is surprisingly a decent head coach. He seems to know what he wants to do. And now they need to get some defensive guys there. They need some dudes on defense because they don't really have any. They've had some injuries with their first overall picks the last couple of years. And now they can go and get a defensive end. A lot of speculation about keeping a Michigan man in Michigan with Aiden Hutchinson, but I'm going with Kayvon Thibodeau because Thibodeau has a higher upside. I think Hutchinson's a great player. He's got some deficiencies with his hips and his inability to bend the edge as much. So that's what gives Thibodeau the edge in terms of player overall in this draft class at defensive end. So I'm taking Thibodeau to the Lions at number 2.
I like that pick. I love Thibodeau. And I think that he's kind of getting that one. People are talking about him not loving the game and all that stuff. It's all bullshit. Let's be real. Like, he loves the game. no guy in the top 5 doesn't love the game. Like he loves it, and he's massive. I think it's going to come down to him and Hutchinson. So for
Yeah,
me, to me, it's like, okay, is Detroit going to go with that hometown kid narrative? Because the NFL draft and the NFL teams, they do like narrative. Like
love it.
there are some narrative stuff there. So I think that's why when I did my mock recently, I put Hutchinson just to love it. But I do think that we could see that, and I do agree with you there. So now you put me in a bad spot because I wanted Thibodeau at the Houston Texans. And that's where I put him. Oh man, I'm struggling now. Now, when I talk about the Texans and I go over them, I literally put they need everything because they do. And even you Davis Mills truthers out there, like they need a quarterback too. Like stop it. But I don't think they're going to do that here in this draft. So to me, this comes down to Hutchinson, Hamilton, and especially with that edge rusher that you're going to have there. So just because it's best of player available, and I do think they need needs everywhere. Even though I would love to mock Hamilton here, I got to go with Hutchinson here. Just because he is what he is. I mean, he had 74 pressures in 2021. He was one of the main reasons why our team, Michigan, made it to the playoff. If it wasn't for Hutchinson, we wouldn't have been close there.
Probably not. And I think that the biggest thing that separates him in terms of last year to this year was his first step get off. That's why he's actually being drafted this high. Yeah. He improved that even during the season. If you watch his tape, he's got earlier in the season, he has some hiccups with some issues with his footwork. You see that with wide receivers, these false steps. He had some false steps. He has one of the best get offs in the entire draft, and probably already as coming into the NFL, is going to have one of the better first steps at defensive end. So it makes too much sense to get one of these top 2 edge rushers in Houston, and Hutchinson's a really good fit there.
You need edge rushers. I mean, in my you got to build through that. Like if you're going to rebuild, these 2 guys are going to be there. You rebuild through that, or if you take an offensive lineman. So I think it's really clearly these 3, right? And I know we talked about the other offensive lineman options there at 1, but I do think I think it's these 3 guys right now, even with the combine, even though the numbers there. I think these are the guys going to go there. Now, Jets are up at pick 4, so you're on the clock. You have 4 and 10 for the Jets. So I do think that this is a prime area for trade backs, even at 1. Like if someone falls in love with Willis, I do think that there's someone that can move up, but we're not doing that today. We're just going to keep it put. But what do you think? Where are you going with the Jets pick here?
Yeah, this one's interesting because much like the Texans, there's needs literally everywhere. The Jets have issues all over their team, and just when you have that quarterback solidified, that's what you're looking at. And I think that they've tried to address the offensive line quite a bit last year. They actually were pretty good in run blocking, not great in pass protection, but you're still trying to protect your quarterback. But that defense is so bad, so very bad. Like they're one of the worst pass defenses over the last 3 to 4 years, and they've just had so much turnover. And when I look at the best overall prospect on the board in Kyle Hamilton, I'm not letting him fall past number 4 because you're not getting him at 10. He's going to be gone somewhere. And I think there are some options to help your offensive line or other areas that are going to fall to 10. So I can't let Kyle Hamilton fall past the Jets here at 4. It makes too much sense for the best overall player in this draft.
It really is. Like when you look at Hamilton, he's such a unicorn, right? Like when I looked at him too, like I had him mocked to the Falcons later in one of my writing. I just said, hey, he's like Pitts, but on defense. There's so much upside with this kid and what he can do. I mean, he can literally play in the box. He's almost like a hybrid linebacker / defensive back, and he's just a playmaker. And the Jets need playmakers.
The dude's 6'4". He's a safety, and he's 6'4". He moves like a corner who's 3 inches shorter. He's got 33-inch arms, and he plays at 220. Like that's ridiculous. He's the definition of a unicorn at safety.
And I think he would fit that Jets scheme pretty well with what they try to do defensively. I do think that they can use him around, and I think it's a value piece. And he's going to be weird because someone's going to talk themselves out of him, and then in 5 years they're going to be like, "Why did we not draft Kyle Hamilton? Because dude just makes plays."
Yeah, I think Robert Saleh's defense kind of needs a player like that.
Yeah,
and I think it's perfect fit for him. They have some offensive things going, so it makes way too much sense for him to get a prime example of a Jamal Adams, but who can actually cover.
And I think it was Dan and Jeremiah on the podcast, Move the Sticks podcast. They talked about it last year, him and Bucky Brooks, about how good teams prioritize the safety position. And he said most teams just don't prioritize it, and you see most teams that win have that good safety. And I think I think good teams will do this. Now the Jets are still the jury's still out whether or not they're a good team, but they have a new shift, right? They have new staff.
Yeah.
So I think that's there. Now, when we go to the Giants, so the Giants have 2 picks here. I'm going to get to make them both, so that's exciting.
Yeah, you are.
I got to go offensive line for the Giants. I
Yes.
felt like they've needed to build an offensive line for the last, I don't know, 5-10 years. They've had Becton there. They've had Elijah Vera Tucker there. They finished 11th in PFF's offensive line ranking last year. But even then, they've got to be better, and they've got to just get that talent infused on there. So I'm going to go with, and this one's tough, but you're going to Akeem. How do you say his last name? You just said it. I don't want to make
Ekwonu.
Yes, I don't want to make a fool of myself. But I'm taking Ekwonu. And the majority of the reason why is just what he was able to do. He was one of the best players on NC State, 6'4", 320, big kid. I think he's got maneuverability on that line too for guard and tackle. So he's going to be able to get moved around there a little bit. So give me Ekwonu there for the Giants, and that's how they're going to rebuild. And I do think that organization is going to rebuild this way, and they've done it. You've seen it at Buffalo, what they were able to do. So I do think that's going to be kind of the Joe Schoen that's going to be there, Duvall. Those guys are going to build from the inside out.
It's huge. I think Andrew Thomas took some huge steps last year, becoming an actual guy you can trust to play tackle. If you can get your bookend tackles in Ekwonu and Thomas, I think you're setting up Daniel Jones with Brian Dable to actually have a season. Now, whether they're going to go get a Mitchell Trubisky in the offseason to compete with Daniel Jones for that spot, we're going to find out at this point. There's still a few weeks away until free agency kicks up, but you have to build through the trenches. I think you're seeing that a lot of different areas, whether that's offensive line, defensive line, and being able to do that at number 5 with a guy who could very well go number 1 overall, I think is a very great pick for the New York Giants here.
All right, yeah, perfect. See, this is why I should be a GM. I really want I will be forefront. I want the Giants to screw up their pick as a Dallas fan. I just keep taking other people, please. But yeah, they're going to be there. All right, first interesting spot here with the Panthers. So this is the spot I took a little heat for with who I had them drafted in a recent mock. Where are you going with the Panthers here? This could be really anything.
Oh man, this is so there's already not just draft capital, but money invested in quarterback.
Yeah.
In Carolina. I know Sam Darnold is not going to unfortunately be it. I wanted him to pay out to work out so well there last year. It didn't work out. Now, do we know for a fact that he's going to be the starter next year? No. Is there an option here at quarterback that you can say, well, there might be something with this? And then you look at the offensive line. It's not good. Sam Darnold was bad last year, partly because the offensive line was atrocious. He didn't have time. And then when he did, there was just finding leaks and cracks everywhere. So I have 2 options here. Either I take Charles Cross and help solidify the offensive line, or I make the big splash move and I say, you know what? This is we saw the Cardinals do this a few years ago where they went and they drafted Josh Rosen, and then they said, well, we screwed that up. So we're going to go ahead and draft a guy who's much better, and Kyler Murray. So I think that you're realizing your mistakes of the quarterback last year and Sam Darnold, and now you're going to go and get the guy with the most upside in the draft, and that's Malik Willis, and I'm drafting him to the Carolina Panthers at number 6.
Nice. I like it. I like that pick. I mean, they got to do something, right? And you got to go get your quarterback, and their quarterback's not on their roster right now.
Nope.
And that's just the reality. And I love Darnold, but I can't be a truther anymore.
Nope.
I'm done. I can't do it. Willis has a ton of upside. You saw him in the combine. He looked good. He was making throws that you'd like to see. I do think that this also provides some opportunity. Maybe Darnold will start, and then they just kind of move Willis along. And then you see Willis starting by week 4 or 5, probably something like that. To me, it's just, ownership. I know Tapper's there. Will he give their head coach enough time? And Matt Rule, well, because Rule's on a short lease, and so
very much.
This is going to be one of those drafts where the GM and the coach say, "Hey, we got to go get a guy because we have to win," and we've been there now. So I like it. I like this. He's got to go in the top 10. Willis is going to go in the top 10. So all right, I'm going to go with the Giants, and I'm going spicy on this pick, and it's a kid that I love, and I'll be quick. I'm taking Ajaba, the defensive end from Michigan. That's our guy. So that's our boy. But you know what? I think I thought he had a good combine. 4.55 and a 40. 40 for Job was 35. I thought we know he's athletic. and we've seen there. And they've struggled to get pressures all season. They were 31st in adjusted line yards allowed in the rushing game as well. I do think Ojabo can get better there. I know it's a little early, but 41 pressures, 11 sacks, and he could have been the best defensive player on that roster at times last year with Aiden there. So I like him. Don Martindale's scheme is built off blitz and pressure, which I think is something Ojabo would fit. I think it's a good building block, getting your offensive lineman and Ojabo there. I know it's a little early, but I'm going Ojabo.
I don't think it's a bad thing. This draft, after your first two guys, you're betting on traits. Really, if you look at the defensive end class, you're betting on traits. And there's a lot of guys who maybe don't necessarily have all the production, but Ojabo has the production. This last year, he's learning, still learning the position. And the fact that he was able to do what he did, I know he was across from the best producer in college football in Aiden Hutchinson, but he's able to do some things that you can't teach. That speed, that quickness, that understanding of just kind of knowing how to get to the quarterback. Ojabo has all of those things. You teach him a little bit, put on some weight a little bit, maybe help him in the run game a little bit. You're trying to mold a guy who could be one of the top probably 7. We've got to stay a little conservative because we don't really know what this is going to be, but a top 7, top 5 kind of pass rush guy. Obviously, run defense is one area you're looking at, but this really kind of pairs right into where I'm going at number 8 because
I like it.
There's just 2 spots. Okay, the Falcons are looking to trade Calvin Ridley. Okay, that's going to happen. Look at the wide receiver position there. You have Kyle Pitts at tight end, but you got nobody else. Russell Gage is, I imagine, coming back, but he's not a 1. He's not a 2. He's a slot guy. But you also have a defense that can't generate any pressure. 0 that has no ability to do so. The wide receiver class is extremely deep. It has guys you can get. I'm going and taking a guy who I know is probably going in the top 10 now after his combine. Another guy based on traits. And Trayvon Walker of Georgia is one of the freakiest defensive ends in this class. The production's not there, but the traits, again, like we just talked about with Ojabo, are there. And even though I'm not a huge Trayvon Walker fan, I understand, especially after Oweh last year went to the Ravens and he was much better than people anticipated. You're looking at a defensive end just being a huge traits player. But the best thing about Walker, he comes in as a certified already top 15 defensive end in terms of run defense. The dude's immovable. So you just start learning some of these things on hand usage and getting to the quarterback and asking him to tee off. And I think you really got something there.
I like it. I will say this. I think that I think the Falcons think they can win the division because with the way that division's kind of played out, Bucs, Saints, there's iffies there with the quarterback. And I think the Falcons think, hey, we have Ryan. I just read that they want Ryan for 2 more years. They think Matt Ryan's been playing at a good level. I don't necessarily think that, but maybe they do. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're believing that he can be that guy. And you know what? I think they can make the playoffs. And if they have Walker, they need edge, and they
desperately.
They have to. They got to get pressure there. That defense has been bad for the last 3 since they made the Super Bowl. It's just been
very much.
And so no, I agree. I think that's there. Now I think we come to the Broncos at 9, and I think the Broncos need a quarterback, but they think they have a win now team, and I don't see a rookie quarterback winning now in that division. And I with Herbert and Mahomes, that division better than I do. I just don't see that. I think they have to go out and try to get somebody, but I don't think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers. I think everybody keeps saying that, and I just don't see it. So I do think that they're going to go out there. So if they're not going to go quarterback here, they do need some help. I think offensive tackle. I do think that they need some help on the offensive line, and I really do believe that, and I do think that's there. So with me seeing him still on the board, I think I'm going to take Charles Cross from Mississippi.
That makes a lot of sense. I think that you look at that defense; it's been ready for a quarterback for years. That's what they've built this on. They have the weapons at wide receiver, running back, tight end. I mean, like you said, this team is supposed to be ready now. I think Russell Wilson's probably the guy that they're looking at. I think that Seattle is going to be asking a lot for Russell Wilson, as they should. Russell Wilson's an extremely good quarterback, and you're looking at first-round draft capital. Whether that's going to be this pick, we're going to have to wait to find out, but we don't have any of that information yet. So offensive tackle makes a lot of sense, especially because they have developed Garrett Bowles. He actually is not a terrible tackle anymore. He's okay. He needs something to help out that offensive line. They drafted Quinn Miners last year, who's going to play probably guard or center for them this year. A young, powerful dude, athletic too. So I like this pick, Charles Cross for the Broncos. Maybe I don't want to say it because it's just not good. They don't want Drew Lock starting next year. They don't. So maybe it ends up being Teddy again.
Teddy again, baby. I saw it. I saw Teddy
thing.
again. They're talking themselves back into Teddy. Like I don't know. I think worst case scenario is that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Ryan Fitzpatrick, worst case scenario. Like there's guys out. Jimmy G would be disgusting, but it could happen. I just when you look at the class, I just don't know what they're gonna do. I mean, or they just, they look at that stopgap and they just say, but they got to go get one, right? Like at some point, you got to go get a guy. Like you got to go do whatever you can to get a guy because that window is very close to closing on them, and they're gonna have to rebuild again. And it's just like what we've been perpetually rebuilding for 5 years since we lost Peyton.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot for Denver.
Yeah.
They haven't been able to find that quarterback. I do think worst case scenario is Drew Lock starting next year, which is just like I said, it's not fun to think about, but. That transitions into the Jets pick at 10 because had he fallen, I think Charles Cross would have been a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And you pair him with the offensive line that they've got, I think that would have been a lot of fun. But as it stands, he's not there. And I don't think I can double down on secondary here just yet. I'm looking at some other prospects. They drafted, Elijah Moore last year, who turned out to be their number one receiver after they brought Corey Davis in. They drafted Michael Carter. So the offense is looking good on that side, except I'm going to have to make a little bit of a reach here because even though Charles Cross is gone, the offensive line, you still need to improve. I think that there are some defensive side parts you could look at. I think Jermaine Johnson is a possibility here at 10.
Yeah.
But I think I'm going to take Trevor Penning. And I know this is probably a little spicy. But like we talked about, you build through the trenches. And Trevor Penning, yeah, he's a little bit of more of a raw guy, but coming out of Northern Iowa, the dude is mauler. He's an absolute mauler. He's going to help them make that run game sufficient. I think what Robert Saleh wants to do is run the ball a bit more effectively, much like they did in San Francisco. And these Kyle Shanahan disciples, whether it's from the defensive staff, they do have the passing game coordinator there as their offensive coordinator. So I think that's what they're looking to do. And if they can make that run game viable and let Zach Wilson be more protected and get him more play action passes with the offensive weapons that they have, I think it makes a lot of sense.
They got to fix it a little bit. They got to go there. I know Charles was going to be. I'm glad I sniped you on that. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel good about doing that. Even though this isn't a fantasy draft, but I think that does fit well. I think him and Hamilton could be an interesting piece, and I think Penning fits that kind of Saleh's philosophy too. Like when you're looking at kind of what he likes to do in terms of what going on in the locker room. So there's our top 10. So so you notice edge and tackle, right? Like those. That's the bread and butter, I think, with what you're looking at in terms of the top 10. I do think there's a lot of value there. So we're going to move on to the Commanders. Wow, I said that right. That's good.
You did. I'm proud of you.
It's been a while. All right. So let's talk about the Commanders here at 11. When you're looking at what they need, I think they do need a cornerback. And I'll be honest, I love Booth and I love Stingley. Stingley's getting me nervous, though, with that Liv France injury.
Yeah.
They're in there. I know they need safety. I think they need linebacker help, but this could be an entry spot, even maybe a wide receiver. But I'm staying put here, and I'm taking my boy Matt Corral from Ole Miss. I'm going. I know everybody out there, you're laughing at me right now. But listen, I love Corral. I know he didn't throw at the combine, and everybody's kind of jumping on him about that. But I do think he can kind of solidify that with his pro day. It just fits. I feel like he has that leadership that they're going to like there in Scott Turner's offense that pushes the ball downfield with timing concepts. That's pretty much kind of what he did in college. And when you look at that, Turner has implemented a lot of RPOs in that system, and Corral's done that. 60% of his dropbacks involve some type of play action or RPOs. 40% of his passes that he's completed with 20 yards or downfield. I think he fits the system for them. That's why I'm going to draft him here. I do think Corral fits their system really well, and they need a quarterback. And I think they're done with the stopgap quarterbacks. I just feel that.
I'm not there with the stopgaps. I think they're actually going to bring Jimmy Garoppolo in. I believe that's what they're going to do. And then next year, they're still going to be bad, and they're going to draft a quarterback high, which is a much better quarterback class. But I understand getting a guy who fits exactly, like you said, what they want to do. Maybe he's not ready yet. We don't really know. We didn't get to see him work anything. So it's basing a lot on his Ole Miss tape, which is up and down we'll just say it's up and
It
down.
is.
So it's definitely a spicy pick, but again, when you have this type of quarterback class, you never know. So you could hit on somebody. That's why you go get your quarterback. That's why you go get your guy. You never really know. That's why I had the Panthers go and get Malik Willis, because you just don't know. And he's got that athletic upside. So I totally get trying to get your guy, especially younger. You can develop. You have that fifth-year option. Definitely makes sense specifically for what the Commanders are trying to do. Now, in come the Minnesota Vikings. Okay. This is
a tough one because
this is a tough one.
New general manager, new system. We don't know where they're going. So this is a very tough pick here.
So I know where I'm going because I've seen the passing defense of the Minnesota Vikings be atrocious. Even they've had so many different injuries. They've been plagued over the last couple of years with injuries. And, I think that they've had some picks work out, some picks not work out. They've had some turnover at corner. You have now a new defensive head coach, or this should be not defensive head coach, defensive staff without Mike Zimmer there anymore. And I'm taking Sauce Gardner because I do think that he is going to be the best fit there. And I'm, like I said, I'm worried about Derek Stingley. He's had a couple injuries. That Liz Frank is starting to creep into this time where you should be trying to improve your draft stock. And it's not great. So I think that Derek Stingley might end up still being the best corner in this draft in terms of upside, but with injuries, it's hard to know. And Sauce Gardner has been incredible at Cincinnati. I think he's going to be incredible in Minnesota, or would be incredible in Minnesota.
So do you like Sauce more than Booth then? Basically, since you took him first?
I do. Okay. I do. Just a little bit.
It's close though. Like I like close. I really like Booth. I don't know what happened with Booth. I think it was just a mix of Clemson not being very good this year. Well, not very good, but I do think that there's some question marks there. I do see the upside with Gardner though. Like he was fantastic. I mean, as good of a season you can have, he did it better. Like with what he was able to do. So I like that. I think that corners could be where they go here. I think it's a safer play because if you go for like a D end here, I think you're reaching a little bit in terms of the talent that's up there. So no, I like that pick. Let's go to the Browns. Let's talk about you guys, Browns. I do think they're bringing Baker back, so I'm not going there. I think they need wide receiver, edge, defensive tackle, and I think it's very, very real possibility that they go edge here. Just because of, like we just mentioned, the edge class. I'm not going to go edge though.
No, you shouldn't.
I'm not going edge here. I do think that there is a possibility there. I'm going with our boy Jameson Williams from Alabama. I think they need a wide receiver. I think they need to go over the top. I know that Baker is going to limit some of that, but I do think Baker was hurt last year. I think that they can wait on Williams coming back because I do think that they're going to add a receiver in free agency, and I think that he's the type of talent that you go up for right now that you was probably going to go in the top 10, and then he injured his ACL. So give me Williams on the Browns.
That's not even close to a spicy pick because I have him as my wide receiver one in this class. I think he's that good. And the only argument I would make is that maybe they need some yak ability, that like game-changing yak ability with that we haven't necessarily seen from Jameson Williams. Not that he doesn't have it, because I think he does, but there's a different wide receiver I think I would have gone. But funny that the first wide receiver that's coming off the board is at 13. There's been none in the top 10, which kind of shows you some of the question marks surrounding wide receiver. Last year, it was clear cut. Jamar Chase was just, and even Jalen Waddle, both of those guys were heads and tails above everybody. So interesting that the wide receiver doesn't come on until 13, but it's a great fit. I think that bringing the top off the vertically, the separation that Jameson Williams creates is something they need desperately in Cleveland. So it's a really, really good pick. Now, this is an interesting dynamic because I think that the Ravens are a much better team than they finished. Without Lamar Jackson, I think that in all the injuries they had on defense, it really shows you how a team can fall down who probably could have won the division, maybe should have, depending on how you view that. But where do we think the Baltimore Ravens are going? Because there's some, I think corner is still a pretty big need there. Even, Marlon Humphrey is really good, but they had like most injuries after he was gone. There was nobody. Like there was no corner on that team that could do anything. So this, for me, is a perfect opportunity to pair Marlon Humphrey with Derek Stingley Jr. and just profit. Like I think that's a perfect fit.
I like that fit. They're going to have to add somebody in there in that scheme, right? Like you talked
Yeah.
about. I think he will work well in the man and zone concepts that they like to run. I think he's a good fit there. It's just a health, right?
Yeah,
Like I think with
exactly.
Stingley, it's just like, but at 14, for a guy that was probably going to go after his freshman year, if he could have came out top 7 probably in the draft, he's that good. He's that much of a game
Yeah.
changer. This could elevate them in that division too.
Definitely. I'm excited to see what they do there. And I think most of their needs are defense. I think that they add their wide receivers. You're going to have Ronnie Stanley coming back next year. You have your running backs, most specifically. I forget his name.
JK
Yeah,
Dobbins.
Dobbins
Don't
coming
hate
back.
my guy. That's my guy. JK, you're coming back.
There's so many names. I don't hate them. I just forget them. But yeah.
So
yeah, I think defense is where they're going to go. And it makes too much sense for Stingley falling.
They need a ton of depth on that defensive side. That's just what they're going to have to do. And they were so unlucky last year. Like the Ravens got
so
unlucky. They got just screwed. I do think that they're capable of winning that conference, to be honest. I think they can. I think it's those three. It's the Bills, Chiefs, and the Ravens for me. I mean, they're always going to be up there right now. All right, let's go to the Eagles. They got 3 picks here in the next 5. I feel like I keep just drafting for the NFC East teams.
Yeah, right. That's what you do.
I really hate them. But all right, so the Eagles. Let's talk about what they can do. For me, we're gonna have back-to-back picks here. Center, I think, is a need. Safety, cornerback, linebacker, edge, wide receiver, those type of things. I think they do need help there. I am going to stick with my guns on this one, though. And a guy that I think that they're really falling in love with is Drake London from USC. I think that's just an easy pair with Devonta Smith. I think London's very versatile. He can work on the inside, the outside. They need to give Hurts somebody else too. Hurts the way I looked at it last year is I was never a Keaton Slovis guy from USC, but London was able to kind of elevate Slovis because Slovis struggled a little bit, but he could just throw it up. And London went and got it. And when you watch the film and you watch the tape, you're like, damn, London can really elevate his quarterbacks. That's something Hurts really needs because I do question Hurts' accuracy, those type of things. But if he can get that guy to separate himself, I think they have to go wide receiver here. I love Garrett Wilson. He's my wide receiver 1 for everybody out there. Just know that. I'm not picking him there, though, because I don't think he fits with Devonta as well as Drake London does. And I think the Eagles have fallen in love with that big guy on the outside.
I would hope that they do because they don't have that huge guy. I mean, you have a guy that you missed on in Jefferson balling in Minnesota. And then you have Jalen Reagor, the guy who you drafted, who, I mean, if you had anybody followed me during that time, I was never a Jalen Reagor dude. He was like a 3rd, 4th round pick at best for me. And you're seeing exactly why. The dude can't separate. But Devonta Smith paired with Drake London is a match made in heaven because you have 2 guys that are going to create natural separation. And Drake London, who actually came in a little bit smaller at the combine measurements, which I personally think helps his overall outlook. Yeah. Typically, those big 6'5" plus guys have to be the elite of the elite to exceed in the NFL. And he's a little bit smaller, and you see the movement, the footwork, and the hip fluidity, the ankle flexion, all these things that he can do to create separation in the short and intermediate and even deeper parts of the field are going to help Hurts a ton. And now we go right into pick 16. This is a very interesting dynamic. As you went wide receiver, I might have gone a different route, but Drake London's my wide receiver 2 in this class. So it makes perfect sense. It's falling exactly how I would go in wide receiver order. But it's too much to pass up. I'm going to take Jermaine Johnson out of Florida State for the Eagles right here because you pair him, I think, with Josh Sweat. You already have some interior pressure helping it with all the guys you have there. I think you create a pretty dominant front 4, and that's, in my opinion, how you're going to help I know secondary is needed, but they have another pick coming up. Don't worry, Eagles fans. There's another pick coming up. There's a lot of guys on this board. They're going to help the Eagles in the secondary. I know linebacker is a big issue too. That could be something coming up. But again, I think you build from the front back with these guys. And Jermaine Johnson, I think, comes in immediately, impacts that defensive front. You get more pressures, you create more turnovers, and you make it easier for some of your secondary guys that maybe aren't the best to be their best.
I have a confession to make. I love Jermaine Johnson. I absolutely love him. He killed it in the Senior Bowl. One-on-ones, he was basically, they said he's unguardable. They couldn't block him. I mean, he's just somebody out there was crushing it. If he went to the Eagles, I would be sick to my stomach because that's a great pick. Like, if these guys, I mean, those are 2 good picks for both these sides of the ball, and I do think Jermaine could create that pressure. They need it in the NFC East. So, yeah, that's a great pick. Freaking Eagles. All right, so, yeah, if they go there. So, let's hope they don't. But, all right, let's go to the Chargers. I'm gonna switch this up a little bit with the Chargers. I really think that they could use Garrett Wilson if Mike Williams was to leave, but all reports are is Mike Williams is coming coming back. So I just read an article yesterday that they want Mike Williams back. They're going to do whatever it takes to get them back. So I'm going to go on the assumption that they're bringing Mike Williams back. Then to me, Garrett Wilson doesn't make a lot of sense there.
Correct.
So that leaves basically cornerback and defensive tackle. And, it's hard for me I really want to go with our guy, Jordan Davis, who absolutely crushed the Senior Bowl, or excuse me, the NFL Combine yesterday.
Insane.
He was fantastic. But I just can't. I love Andrew Booth, and I'm going to take Andrew Booth here. And that's where I'm going with, in a division that I think they need cornerback help. In a division, you got to play Mahomes. I do think that you need help on that. And I do think that you saw that defense get exposed a little bit throughout the season. Even Derek Carr exposed them. And so I do think Andrew Booth sets a need. I like Booth. I've definitely been higher on Booth than the most out there. I think he excels in press and zone coverage. I think that'll fit the system. He has athleticism and is a ball hog. I really find him to be very good there. Now, he does take a lot of freedom, though, and I do think that he gets burned sometimes. I do see that in the tape, and I've noticed that about scouts who talked about it. But even then, I think at 17, this is a pretty good value for the Chargers.
It is. I think I personally would have gone with Jordan Davis. Only reason is because if you look back to Brandon Staley in LA, there was one guy who made that defense work, and it's Sebastian Joseph Day. If you have that guy that defense tackle, that two gaps, you can kind of make everything else work.
Yeah.
But you can't argue with the value you're getting Andrew Booth, who could be the first quarterback corner off the board. I do think he has all those tools. His speed and decisiveness paired with his mental ability just to kind of see things develop is almost unmatched in this class. I think that Stingley maybe has a little bit of edge in there, but I can't argue with what you're doing. It makes a lot of sense to go after corners, especially after what we saw really with Patrick Mahomes, and you're going up against him in this entire your AFC West. You have to be able to contain him a little bit. So secondary makes a ton of sense there. Definitely does.
Yeah. Everybody knows, I really wanted to pick Jordan Davis, but I was a pussy. But I will say Andrew Booth is someone who I just, for me on the board, I'm looking at it, I would have Booth just valued highly. I know that Davis what he did yesterday was phenomenal. But I do think when I looked at my board, Booth was just a little bit higher. So, all right, let's go to your Saints. What do you got with the Saints here?
Yeah, there's really just one position that's just punching me in the face. You look at the Saints, even with all the quarterback issues that they had, we're going to have to really see what happens there with quarterback. I don't think they're going to draft one, however, because there is a desperate need. We don't know what's going to happen with Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas, even if he comes back, who else is there?
Yeah.
Nobody. I think
Marquez Callaway. Don't be hating my boy Marquez.
I think Marquez Callaway is extremely overblown as a player. I don't see it. I'm going to just take Treylon Burks and say goodnight.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to pair a guy who's known to be more of a possession receiver in Michael Thomas, assuming he comes back and they figure things out, with a wide receiver who can win everywhere on the field and creates some of the most yak potential in this entire draft class. He's electric with the ball in his hands. He's huge. I think you can get him actually with a Michael Thomas, maybe learn to play a little bit more bully ball. That's the one gripe that I have with Treylon Burks, is for a guy his size, he doesn't play like he's as big as he is. It's some of the issues that he has stem from not just being able to play a little bit more physical. But the fact of the matter is, there's no real threat at wide receiver in New Orleans, especially if Michael Thomas doesn't come back. Now I think Treylon Burks is the answer there.
No, I think that's a fine call. I do think, I had mocked Hal in the first one I did, but I do know that they just came out and said Jameis is probably the most likely option of coming back on a one-year deal again.
That's what I would imagine.
Which it fits, right? Like, I think that's what they have to do there. And if they do, they got to get another wide receiver in there. And I don't know what the hell Michael Thomas is. I hope he comes back. I hope Slam Boy comes back. But if he doesn't, then we're just going to have to look at this idea of where we're going. All right, let's go to the Eagles at 19. I kind of screwed myself because I probably should have picked Booth here, because that's probably the most pressing need here. So if you're looking at the board, who's left? George Khalif is still there. Kenyon Green. Garrett Wilson's still on the board. Olave, Linderbaum, DeMarvin Leo, Jordan Davis, Devin Lloyd. For them with the Eagles here, to me, it's cornerback or linebacker. And I'm just going to go based on what I think is going to happen, just because I know that they'd never draft linebackers on the first round. And even though I did, I do know that Eagles tend to stay away from that. I don't know if this is a reach. You could tell me a little bit about him if you want, but I think I'm going to go Trent McDuffie. And I'm gonna take Trent. And when I was doing my stuff for him, I looked at, he's a type of player that I think can play multiple schemes, positions. He's a good athlete. He has good anticipation. I think he can hold his own against the receivers in that division as well. And they're going to need it. Obviously, McLaurin there, CD, all these other guys. I think that this would be an okay fit. I don't hate it. I don't love it, but I think that it's a position of need that they got to grab in the first round with 3 picks.
Yeah, McDuffie makes a lot of sense. The only question that I have is his length. His 29-inch arms, almost 30-inch arms, but still, it's extremely short for a corner. But when you watch his tape, he almost doesn't let it impact him. His technique is extremely sound. He plays at Auburn. He played a lot of press coverage. Like that's something with a guy who with short arms you typically don't want to see. But he's able to keep his hips underneath him. He moves like a very fluid corner, and he's able to still keep himself in front of these athletic guys like Jameson Williams and all those receivers that they have in the SEC. So he's gotten a lot of experience playing against fast, athletic talent at wide receiver, and I think that it's tuned him up to being a very extremely sound technical cornerback. And I really do think that he's going to be a good NFL corner outside of his length. It might find some issues here and there, but I think overall his technique is extremely sound.
Yeah, I think so too. He's the most technical guy. I really like him. Like I really liked his tape. I thought he was very sound, and I think the Eagles need it. I think the Eagles could fit there. They get an edge rusher, they get a corner, and they get a wide receiver. I think that's really where they should go. If they're not going to go linebacker, as much as I love my guy Dean, I think they're going to go position of need. I think they value that cornerback position just a little bit more on their board.
Here we go. Pittsburgh Steelers fans. This is really another one of those teams like the Broncos where they think they have all the pieces. They think they have everything to make a run in their division, which I understand. They got a defense that's better than I think it played at times last year, specifically against the Chiefs. But, I mean, that's the Chiefs. You also have the offensive weapons. You have the running back, Najee Harris. You have an offensive line that is coming around. They need to address that as well. That's still going to be an issue. But you don't have the quarterback. The franchise's best quarterback ever just retired. And Mason Rudolph is the guy that they're talking about. That's not happening. I don't know what anybody in that organization has said to anybody else about Mason Rudolph that should make him or anybody else believe he's the quarterback.
No.
That shit ain't going to happen. I'm telling you right now. Desmond Ridder, Cincinnati, blew up his combine specifically with that 40 time that he had. I believe the Steelers are going to draft Desmond Ridder to be the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers for the future. I think that there's a lot of tools that he has. He doesn't have necessarily the arm strength in terms of really just velocity. I think he has the deep ball. He's got some really, really nice deep balls on his tape. He does need some fine-tuning with his mental processing. That's one thing in Cincinnati. You see a lot of run-first offenses like that. They do that to give the quarterback a little bit more option with the play action, and so he doesn't always have to go through all of his reads. But there are some times where he can get to his third and fourth read. So you just got to develop that a little bit. I think the arm strength is there. The athleticism is there. And in the division with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, to an extent, we see how he moves around. I think that's becoming even more important in the NFL. So I think that Desmond Ridder makes a lot of sense.
I think if they don't get Willis, I think Ridder does make sense for them. I just did we're writing this. We have a Debbie manifesto for the Debbie Royale, but we're doing like rookie guides right now. So I wrote mine about Ridder. That dude is just, and I know analytic guys are gonna hate me, but he's a gamer. And when I read it, when I was going through what he did in high school and about how he had no offers and he had one workout with Cincinnati, and it was his junior year, and they said, "Hey, we'll work out with you," and they said the coach said that he had the best workout they've ever seen from him in high school. Like he just showed up. And then you look at what he did in college. He showed up and he just got that starting job. Like he has the tools, and the Steelers would be a great fit because they could do it. Right. So like, that's the thing. I want Ridder to go to the Steelers. I want Ridder to go to a team that can use him and utilize him well. I would be scared if he went to a team that has shown consistently that they can't develop talent because Ridder needs help. And if they want to use Mason for a couple games until they realize Mason's not, he should be playing in the XFL developmental league, then I think that's going to be how they go. I think that's a good pick there. So yeah, let's talk about our Patriots now. You screwed me with Treylon Burks going to the Saints because I really wanted him to go to the Patriots here. When you're looking at the board and what they could use, I really think they could use all offensive line and linebacker and wide receiver here. And I do know that they need to give help here, but I don't think they would reach on a wide receiver here as much as I like Garrett Wilson. I don't think that would really profile him. And I know that Belichick's one big thing is that he can never get a wide receiver one in the draft. Like he just can't do it. Like that's the one, N'Keal Harry is going to be there. I don't know how big of an issue that's going to be for him. And then when you look at the board with what he wants to fill, I love Kenyon Green too, from the guard from Texas A&M. But I'm gonna go a little bit off of here, and I'm gonna take Jacoby Dean here.
Okay.
So
Okay.
wherever he's at, I gotta find him now. Where's my? So that's when you know you're reaching. Oh, Nakobe Dean. Okay, so
There he is.
there he is. I missed him, guys. All right, Nakobe Dean. I'm taking Nakobe. I like Nakobe. I think I had him mocked a little earlier to the Eagles into my 1st
Mhm.
one. He possessed his skill. He ran okay in the 40 yesterday. I think that he's one of those things when game speed looks a little different, that he has athleticism and coverage. I think it could get him an interesting comp to just an athletic comp out there on that defense. So Nakobe Dean is my guy. I'm going to take him from Georgia.
Yeah, Bill Belichick, offense be damned, right? He doesn't care about any of that stuff. But there's a reason that people were surprised by Dean's 40 times, because the mental processing. He sees everything before it happens.
Yes.
That's why he looks so much faster on tape than his 40, and it's going to continue because he's prepared. He sees things, those instincts, those football instincts that we call football IQ, that you just see on the field. He is probably the best linebacker and one of the highest football IQ players in this entire draft. That's why he looks so much faster on tape, and it's just going to translate. I think Bill's would love that if he ends up drafting him. I still think they have to draft wide receiver. I think they have to. I don't know. You can't live in a world where Jacoby Myers or Kendrick Bourne is your number one wide receiver with that. So I mean, I would have gone a different route, but I think this makes a lot of sense considering Bill Belichick. Like I said, offense be damned. I'm going to get my defense. I'm going to do what I got to do at defense. So.
I will say this about the Patriots, and they're so stubborn that I could see them basically just saying, we can get a wide receiver in the 2nd and 3rd round, Sky Moore, some of these other guys, and just
Something
say, hey,
like
we'll just punt, and we'll do that. I could see them doing it, but hey, we'll see. So, all right, let's go to your Raiders.
Yeah, so this is probably going to be a little bit of a interesting pick for a lot of Raiders fans. Maybe I'm wrong in this assumption, but their offensive line has been extremely good, even without some of the best players. I think Colton Miller has done a good job, but Rodney Hudson, they let him go last year. The center, who honestly was with the Chiefs before that, they were worried he would go back to the Chiefs and help make their offensive line great, but instead they got Creed Humphrey and made it great anyway. And then they traded him to the Cardinals. I think if you draft yourself one of the top 5 best players in this draft, and Tyler Linderbaum at 22, you're already talking about extending your quarterback in Jarrett Carr. I think this makes a lot of sense. You want to give that insurance, and also you want to improve your run game. I think that they think Josh Jacobs. I personally think Josh Jacobs can be a good running back, but if you don't support him and your quarterback, you're not going to do that. So I think Tyler Linderbaum is the pick here.
I like that pick. I think I had him mocked the top 10. I know everybody yelled at me, but I think he's that good. Like, I think that he can be one of the smartest players on the field, and he can control your offense. And I think that's something that Raiders definitely need. And McDaniels comes from that same cloth to Belichick. So you're going to get these same kind of picks. So yeah, no, I agree there. All right, let's go to the Cardinals. All right, Cardinals can go a lot of different ways. It really depends on what happens in their wide receiver room. I do think that they might bring some guys back. Cornerback definitely going to be there, but I think defensive tackle is too. I'm taking our guy finally, Jordan Davis.
There you go.
I got to get him on board. Like, at some point, we got to get that workout monster there.
Got to happen.
I think that he can set that tone in that division, which is one of the toughest divisions in NFL. I think that he would just do a lot of things on the defense. We could see with Simmons, those type of guys there. A lot of versatility there, a lot of athletes on that field, and I just think that would be a great pick for them.
I definitely agree with that. And I think that they need that defensive interior pressure help. They got to figure out what's going to happen with Chandler Jones, but all that considered, you need pressure inside. That's the fastest and easiest way to get to a quarterback. And I think Jordan Davis, outside of the obvious defensive run defense he's going to bring, I do think he's going to have upside as a pass rusher in the NFL. And hopefully coming out of Georgia, where they don't necessarily always have you do that, is going to help him there. And we're going to see a lot of interior.
Don't let me down. Don't let me down here, my Dallas Cowboys here, Daniel.
We're gonna. I was gonna say we could just trade a pick, so you can pick for them if you want.
No, I want to see what you got. I don't want to be a homer. Let's see where you think you would go, and I tell you where I would have gone if I was a Dallas fan.
So we're going to talk about the offense. I think that with your coaching staff coming back, I think they're pretty confident with the defensive players. Maybe linebacker comes in maybe a little bit later.
Yeah,
their run game, offense, even. Dak Prescott has some pressure issues last year. Interior, offensive line, I believe is where they're going in the first round. I think Kenyon Green out of Texas A&M is going to be the pick. And that's who I'm going to pick.
Perfect. That's what I mocked. I love it. We have to get with him, and I think that he's so versatile that
Yeah.
we need that help there. And then if you're looking at Connor Williams, he's probably leaving. Connor
Yep.
McGovern struggled last season, and
Very
Tyron
much.
Smith is always hurt. So you
Boom.
got to get Kenyon Green in there. So yeah, that's a really good pick there. All right, let's look at Buffalo here. And even though George Kalivit is still on the board, which are you surprised that any of these guys still on the board?
I'm surprised Wilson's on the board still,
Well,
honestly.
he's not going to be. So I'm going to take him to Buffalo. So I just wanted to just point that out that if there is a guy like Wilson or Jameson or these guys there,
Yeah.
I think Buffalo goes wide receiver because even though they have that wide receiver class, and I know like fantasy people love Gabe Davis and there's truthers out there for all that, they do need to upgrade there. And I think they're going to do what we've seen these guys do. Look what the Bengals did. They just lost, they saw what the Bengals did with Chase and Higgins and Boyd there. I think Diggs and Garrett Wilson would be a great combo there. And then whoever they bring back, however they decide kind of what that third guy looks like, I think Garrett Wilson would be the pick because I think he's the best player on the available, especially on the offensive side.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I think that you need number 2. And I actually just did a Gabe Davis video for the Fantasy Football Astronauts. It should be dropping probably this week, if not next week. So you guys will get to hear all of my talk about him. But the way I'm saying Garrett Wilson makes sense should give you an interesting look into why I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Tennessee at 26. This one is a little bit interesting too. I think that their wide receivers are clearly set. Their running back is set. Their offensive line is set. Their quarterback is set. What does that tell you? The defense needs some help. Okay, they had injuries everywhere and they made it work. But one guy I think can help solidify some of the issues that they had. Linebacker. Okay, Devin Lloyd, I think 100% is going to be the pick if he's on the board here at 26. They have some issues at linebacker, and I think that you have some. Their front four was one of the best in the NFL. Just to continuously stopping the run, generating pressure, which is an interesting prospect. But if you get a linebacker in there that can communicate to everybody, I think that he can really be that green dot for them.
Yeah, no, I think when we're getting down to this, especially with just like how they build these teams that are really good, like Tennessee, they need guys that go get it, right? They need those athletes there. And I agree. I think that would be a good fit for them in terms of what they're looking at with the roster construction, defensive line, all those type of things. I think that and linebackers, I think they need that help there. All right, let's go to Tampa Bay. And to me, they're one of the most challenging teams to mock for. So they lost Tom Brady, they lost the Pro Bowl guard. Ali Maupert, they lost guys that they needed that they definitely fill. So where are they going to go in terms of like, where are they going to go then? So to me, it's like, where are they going to go here? I might, I really wanted to take just looking at the board, like George Carlito is still there. What is your opinion on George? What is your opinion on him?
I'm not a George Klopp, this guy. I think that
I can tell since he's still on the board, and me neither. So this is going to piss some Purdue fans off.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. He's just I got no issues with the player that he is coming into the NFL. He's going to be a really good run-stopping guy. I think there's a reason he chose to not do some of the tests at the combine. We'll just say that.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll keep it there, right? We're gonna keep it there. So to me, with what the Bucs are looking at, I do think that they're gonna go for someone that I think really had a good Senior Bowl and he did look good yesterday in the combine. I'm gonna go Zion Johnson.
Yep.
So I'm gonna take from Boston College offensive line. They just lost, as we said, offensive lineman. They're gonna have some changes down there. Get Zion and then just build out and see from there. Because I don't think they're gonna take a quarterback. I think they think Trask is they're gonna be their guy if they don't try to go grab somebody. They just drafted him in the second round last year. As much as I don't think Trask is that guy, I don't know if they can draft a quarterback here with the draft capital there, and they need offensive line help now.
No, that's a great pick, especially because I do think that regardless of what quarterback said they want to run the ball, I do think that they're going to bring back Fournette. At least they're going to look to bring him back. And I think if you can help that offensive line with some young, good players, Zion Johnson makes a lot of sense. They've already got some really good players there, so you want to be able to run the ball a little bit more. And hopefully that quarterback, whoever ends up being, can help everything else go. Just stay on board a little bit. You don't need anything crazy. Just kind of stay on board. Now this is
a tough one too because we don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Does Aaron Rodgers leave? Like, I'm gonna make this pick based on the assumption that Aaron Rodgers plays in Green Bay next year.
Okay.
So that's what I'm gonna say. You still have, I think you have a clear need at wide receiver too. I think that's just the way it is. You don't have Allen Lazard is not going to be your wide receiver too. Like Amari Rodgers is not going to be your wide receiver too. I know you drafted him. You are also losing Marquez Valdes-Scantling. So I'm just going to take Chris Olave and say, put one of the best route runners in this class next to the best route runner in the NFL and say, here, Aaron Rodgers, you want some help? Here you go.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good pick. I think with where he's going to go, if Aaron Rodgers comes back, they get Olave there. That could be interesting one season if they have it. They need help, right? They need someone that
Yeah.
can separate. And if you watch that San Francisco game, not a lot of separation going out
Correct.
there with St. Brown, any of those guys. They just didn't have it. And I think that was one of their biggest weaknesses. So we go there. All right, let's go to the Dolphins. Man, I don't want to draft a running back in the first round because I don't think it's going to happen.
Don't do it.
Even as good as they've been, and Breece Hall had a great workout.
Yep.
Even though they need a running back, I think that they come from that Shanahan thing where he's going to come from that and he's going to say, hey, we don't need to get a running back in the first round. So to me, this comes down to where are they going to go? I do think they need offensive line help, as we've seen in the past, but I do think that's kind of a reach here at 29, unless they fall in love with somebody. So, I'm just going to take George. I'll take him since you're not going to take him. I'm just going to go best player available for everybody out there on YouTube. Please don't yell at me in the comments, but I'm just going to go best player available, get an edge rusher, put him in on that defense, and just let him go.
That makes sense. I think that you're losing Emmanuel Ogbah too, so you do have some edge need in Miami. They're just gonna forget what the Dolphins where they're located really quick. Yeah, Karlaftis makes sense. Like I said, I think he's going to be an impact run defender in the NFL immediately, and he's got some work to do as a pass rusher. So I hope it works out for him. Like I never want someone to be bad, and that's never what I want. So I hope the best for him, and I think that that's a good place to go. And in offense and some of the defensive aspects, some defense things that they do in Miami can really help him out. And now, Kansas City fans, this is what you've all watched this for. I am the Kansas City guy. And I don't know if any of you have kind of watched how this works. There's really three guys on the board right now I think could make immediate impact in this offense or defense in Kansas City. And I'm going to talk about them because we're only doing the last 3 picks here. So Jahan Dotson could be the guy you thought McCole Hardman was going to be, and creating separation and being all of the things that you wanted McCole Hardman to be. Or we get Daxton Hill, because I think he's not only a top 20 player in this draft, but you might not have Tyrann Mathieu next year. You need somebody alongside Juan Thornhill to be able to have that safety duo that you're looking at and that really Spags needs. But I'm going to go a different direction. I know that everyone wants Daxton Hill. I want Daxton Hill. Trust me, I want Daxton Hill.
Yeah.
But we've talked a lot about building through the trenches. I believe that they're going to bring back Melvin Ingram at defensive end. I don't think that Frank Clark will be there next year. And I truly believe that the emergence of Melvin Ingram has imprinted on Spagnuolo's brain. You need athleticism and speed and power and all of these twitch things at defensive end. And I'm taking Boy Moff out of Minnesota because not only did he just have an incredible combine, the tape is there. The dude is an animal. Not only is he fast, he's powerful. He actually transitions speed to power. That's something that I don't remember the Chiefs being able to do last year. So, yeah, I know it's a little bit of a reach, but I think he's going to go in the first round, especially after that combine performance. So that's who I'm taking.
I don't think there's any reaches at this point. Like in the back end of the first, a lot of these guys are just taking guys. I mean, there can be. It depends on where you go, especially like with the offensive line and stuff. But you're the Kansas City guy. I love Daxton Hill though. I
do too. I think he's a legit top 20 player in this draft. I really do.
Me too.
I also think that Tyrann Mathieu's coming back. I think they're going to find a way to bring it back. But if they don't, that's going to throw a whole wrench into it.
When I did my mock, what I did was I said Mathieu left, and then that's why they would draft
makes
a
lot of sense.
That's just what I did. I just don't know how much he's going to be to come back. All right, last two teams here. We're going to go Bengals, and then we'll wrap it up with the Lions. Bengals, I really think they need offensive line help, but I just don't see an offensive lineman I want to take here. Like when you're looking at the board, I think they have 2 clear positions of need: cornerback and offensive line. And I'm going to go cornerback here. I'm going to take Elam from Florida. And I'm just going to I think he has good aggression. I think he has good vision on the football field. I do think his aggression can get him in trouble a little bit, but he's he's excellent in press coverage. Like when we watch him play, I love that. He needs to refine his technique a little bit and do those things, but I'll just give the Bengals the best cornerback on the board, in my opinion, that's left. And then they'll address that offensive line, some depth pieces as they go in the next couple of rounds. They'll probably take offensive line 2 or 3 in this draft.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree with that pick. They don't even know what their secondary is going to look like next
No.
year. They're going to have some. They're probably going to have some holes. So I like Elam. I may have gone a different direction at corner. I do think corner would have been the pick regardless. But
Who would you have gone? Tell me who's better. Tell me why I'm dumb here. Let's look at
I
the
don't think you're
board.
dumb. I personally just the way that and know that don't do what I'm about to do, guys. Okay, don't do what I'm about to do. Don't scout the helmet because I've also watched Kyler Gordon out of Washington. But
Oh, okay.
just look at some of the corners that have come into the NFL from Washington. They have all produced every single one of them. Like I think that what they do in developing corners there is special, and I think that that's a really good thing to have in some actual success. And I do think that Kyler Gordon's going to have a better projection than Elam. But again, this is all just guesswork at this point. We don't know who's going to be the best outside of some of the top guys. And even then, they could all bust too. You never really know. But I would have picked Gordon over Elam. But again, at this point in the end of the first, I don't think anything is a bad pick by any stretch.
No, not at all. All right, let's wrap this thing up. So Lions, I got the last pick. As we saw, you took Thibodeau at number 2. So where are you going at 32 here? You get the end this hour.
So this is, I don't necessarily think that Lions are going to be bad, but I don't think that I hope they're bad. I really do, because you still need a quarterback. Let's just assume for right now that they're not going to be the worst team in the NFL and be able to get one of those top quarterbacks. Kenny Pickett's on the board there. Do I just want to take Kenny Pickett, or do I want to?
They have the 34, so they still have.
Oh, they do have the 34. That's right.
So they do.
Oh, never mind. I'm taking Dexton Hill.
Okay, good.
Take a Dexton Hill, and I'm going to say let's improve this defense a bit more. Maybe get the quarterback next year, or with the 34th pick.
Yeah, so that's what I did when I did mine. I figured I think I had him take Pickens just because I'm a Pickens stan and I wanted to have fun with it. Yeah. But in that point, I do think that they're going to take the best. If they got Daxton there, that would be fantastic. And then they just say, hey, 34, do we want to reach on Kenny or not? Like, I'm not a Kenny Pickett guy. So
I get it. I mean,
his hands are small.
I was about to say,
hands are small.
Can you hold that Whopper? Can you do it, Kenny? I want to see you do it.
the reality I come in with quarterbacks, and then we'll finish this up, is like with Kenny, like, is he that much better than Jared Goff?
Yeah, like, I get that. I get it.
So like with Jared being there, it's like they're gonna have to play him because that contract. So to me, it's like, does he get you that much better, or can you just wait till next year again? They're not gonna win like the Super Bowl next year.
No,
but if they improve a little bit, you get some of these other guys maybe in there, and I understand it. But all right, let's. I'm just gonna scroll through so everybody can see what we had with our top 10. Real quick, favorite pick of the top 10. What do you got?
I think it's Aquano at 5 for the Giants, because he could be anywhere in that top 4. Having maybe the best offensive tackle prospect fall them at 5 is a dream for them, I think.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So there's our top 10. There's our next guys there. I love the Jermaine Johnson pick at 16. I think that would be a fantastic grab for the Eagles. And then here was our last 10 that we just went through. Favorite from that, and then we will get out of here.
I do think it's Jordan Davis. I think the falling to the 23 it might not even happen. I think he's going to go that good. I think he's that good, but I think the Cardinals would be ecstatic if Jordan Davis was on the board 23.
Someone's going to fall in love with him, and they're going to be like, hey, we got to go grab that guy. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. Danny, why don't you plug anything you got coming up? You do everything. If you got to take 5 minutes, I understand. Just go ahead and tell us what you got coming up. Tell them where you can find you and all that good stuff.
All right. So you guys know I work for the Fantasy Football Astronauts, and there are tons of things coming out what we're doing over there. There's going to be you guys know of all the free film work that's over there for the broadcast. There's going to be a lot more all 22 coming later. We're compiling a ton of prospects for your fantasy purposes, and we're making gigantic playlists of that. So just kind of little sneak peek for you. Just wait for that to come out. And then everything I do over at rgrfootball.com, every single week I do a different draft pick. So this week I'm going over Boy Mafe out of Minnesota. So if you want to watch that, I just did Jameson Williams last week, and then I just switched offense to defense pretty much every single week. And it's just constant film. And if you follow me on Twitter at InHarmsWay19, there's going to be tons of clips and more coming every single day.
Hey, I can't say enough about Daniel. He's a good guy, good follow, but also he just knows his stuff and he knows how to break down film. And you follow him and find his work, and I think you'll be better for it. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. Please keep checking out the channel. So we did a full mock this time. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna be bringing other people on. We're just gonna do team specific mocks, but we'll get Daniel back on for the Chiefs, so he can have 30 minutes of just love fest with the Chiefs, and then we'll go over it. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. Please hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you guys next time.